Good evening, TheoTrade. This is Corey Rosenblum, and you're watching the Theo Nightly video for the 2nd of June here in 2022. We'll talk about two stocks right now that did not necessarily have earnings, but they had guidance or they released same-store sales or different projections about the future. We'll start first by talking about the market today on a broader sense, which was up, just to be simple, around 2%. That is the S&P futures. Dow Mini futures are at 1.4%. Leadership in today's session was the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was up 2.7, and the Russell Small Cap Index was down up about 2.5. In terms of sector performance, right here is the leadership on the session, and that is XLY. XLY is going to be our consumer discretionary. Think about it as the retail sector. Behind that, XLB materials. And then up here is K technology, and that's going to push right into the NASDAQ. But why? Why were those stocks, or which stocks led today's session? Might not be what you're used to seeing. But we'll focus in terms of retail and in terms of technology, which is NVIDIA. Netflix used to be a leader, used to be something called the FANGs, but not anymore. Facebook, and we'll scroll a little bit further down. Tesla, that's going to be a retail sector name, not necessarily technology. Qualcomm is going to be technology. Starbucks, Nike is a retail, and then Google, which is Alphabet, that's a communication, that's considered to be a technology, and right there is Amazon, which is retail. So those will be playing into the rally in today's session. We'll take a look at it this way. Where were the pockets of strength in today's session? This is a pocket. Pocket just means spot where the green is greener or the percent gain is larger, and how that plays into the index. The bigger the box, the bigger the market cap, and the bigger the influence on the respective index. This is the S&P 500. We'll pull into the S&P or the NASDAQ 100 to see that the domination of those monsters of tech. Greenest spot in today's session here, PayPal, not necessarily a big stock in the grand scheme of things, but of course we're looking at Adobe, Facebook. Facebook's the biggest stock, which had the biggest gain, but there is NVIDIA. Now that being said, I promise we'll take a look at the key stocks. There were two of them. Right here is Microsoft. We started the day out with a guidance to the downside, and that felt like a lifetime ago given the close here on the 2nd of June, here Thursday. When Microsoft at the opening bell, right actually before the opening bell, cut its earnings, cut the guidance, revenue guidance, warning, 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 we're not going to be selling as much, or we're going to have future earnings might not be as good as what you're seeing. So companies do that well in advance to prepare for the future, or at least prepare their shareholders and other traders on the street where the guidance is going. And you would think that would be bearish, and it was. But that is the hourly chart. Let's actually jump down to simply a 1-minute chart or 5-minute chart. There's the news. There's the close. Microsoft is up on the session today. So if you want to see the news exactly, that'll be here in the Microsoft or the news, live news tab here in Thinkorswim. But the other stock, not necessarily a earnings play. It had that last week. It's Costco. What's the big difference? They both went straight up. Costco did not start the session down. And where was the headline news on Costco? After the closing bell, just a few moments ago. So Costco reported their, not necessarily earnings, but their sales, same-store sales, and anything else from that last report. That's your intraday session. That's before the headline news. Let's go over here and see how they're trading in the after hours. Let's go to the equities tab, show the extended hours, and Costco, not a big rally, not a big change. Again, not really an earnings play, but just more of guidance or more of releasing information that they want to get out there to the public. So Costco shares are trading up a little bit higher and above that 490 into their prior high. Let's shift to the daily chart on both of these stocks. Where are we in Microsoft? Microsoft is into the falling trend line, falling moving average. That's about 275, 276 per share. That would be a short, but Can't predict the future, not even the economic reports. Nonetheless, that stock does have a better probability to go down or trade down, and that'll be the focus of today's session or today's video. Stocks into resistance, stocks into a key pivot point, and for Microsoft, MSFT, that's going to be about the 275 reference level. What about the broader SPX? Very similar. It's the underside of the 50-day moving average. It's also a key prior reference point. That's, for the S&P at least, 4175. Just to be simple, it's a couple of pivots or turns or reversals up from March ahead of that big rally. And that's where my focus is going to be for the next few sessions. We do have the jobs report, which comes out before the market opens on Friday morning. So perhaps by the time you're hearing this video, you'll know what the jobs report, the unemployment report, and the non-farm payrolls is for this new month. That's the first Friday here in June. But this is my frame. The probability will still favor a down move, and that will be bearish down against this 4,200. But in the event we do see a push above the 4,200, we could see and I'll draw a box for this. This could be a big, call it a short squeeze or a bear market rally, and that's what it would be. From 4,200 up to just say 4,400. Now, is there any precedent for this? Is there any prior moment where this happened? It was. Market was into 4,400. That was at the beginning of March. Downtrend, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs. Again, that 4175 comes back into play. But the probability favored down away from, if we put it this way, 4,400. Good little spot to short. But the bear market rally carried us all the way to peak just shy of that 4650. That's not a projection. It's not a prediction of the future, but it is noting what happened when the market was at a very similar point earlier in 2022. And all it does is argue for the safety or hedges or not getting too directionally bearish at such a critical point in the market. That will be true for the most part in the NASDAQ, which is a little bit weaker on the grand scheme or the grand scale of things. In the Dow Mini, the Dow Futures, that pivot point or reference point, again looking at the prior point, so that was referencing at 343 and then up just about 500. Now we're talking about 3325 or just say 300 right about here. And I could send the Dow Mini Futures up to this 34.5. And finally the Russell. Same logic, same play, same probability. There's a better probability to see the market trade down or reverse from the 1900 level in the Russell Futures and trading IWM. We'll see that in a moment. But there is a lower but real probability that we see some type of multi-day rally, and that could spring potentially from any other surprise news event that a company or corporation wants to put out in the market after their earnings, or of course the monthly jobs report or anything from the Fed. So again, probabilities, not predictions whatsoever. And in the IWM, that would be a focal point into about 188 or just say 189 per share. Same logic to what happened earlier in March. So again, watching headlines, Costco and Microsoft, just to note those, just to note two stocks, just to name a few, that drove price and sent trades or traders for the most part in different directions. If you're left scratching your head today, I certainly am too, in terms of where is this bullishness coming from. But nonetheless, that's what we have to take and trade. Just a quick update on crude oil. It does continue its uptrend. And the uptrend is a series of higher highs, higher lows, and rising averages and rising trend lines. The same logic is playing out in the one area in today's market that was not bullish, at least in terms of sectors. And where were the weakest stocks in today's session? Eli Lilly, Kraft Heinz Food, Amgen, Gilead, Merck, Biogen, ConocoPhillips, Exelon, and we'll just talk about those. CVX, ConocoPhillips were amongst the laggards in today's session, and that brought the broader XLE down when the other sectors were bullish. And they're at similar levels like the S&P and the others. So That's what we'll be watching into next week. And as we start this new month here in June, similar logic, similar potential for a multi-day squeeze. That would be a short squeeze. It would be a bear market rally. But that is what happened in March. So I will have my attention and short-term trades. Not going to swing trade long here, but I will potentially play some intraday scalp positions on the bull side on a break, just referencing what happened the last time we were in a similar situation. That's just a very short-term game plan, and more about hedging and playing from a risk management standpoint than not. And again, we'll have that jobs report on Friday morning. So as we look at those, update your charts, update your in-out spread positions, anything you might have as a hedge, and guard your risk, know your delta in the portfolio and your option trades. And as always, be careful and safe. This is Corey Rosen with tonight's video update for June 2nd, 2022.